So,
Professor, would you say, just to add to what you're saying here, that the equivalence of some in the United Kingdom, not necessarily Jews, but pro-Zionists, and sorry to take it slightly off topic here, the fact they try to equalize between Semitism and Zionism actually exposes what is otherwise enshrined in law and a protection for the Jewish community to harm and hostility, on the basis that if you say that Zionism is part of Semitism, for you to criticize Zionism, you would naturally be criticizing Semitism.
look, if you're a political person, you have to think about how to formulate issues and questions and concerns in a language that people understand. I'll give you a concrete example from here, from my country, and then I will go to your question. A very bright young man, I saw him interviewed. He's running for office in the state of New Jersey. And he was asked, where do you stand on defund the police? He says, defund the police, the public doesn't understand that. Defund the police. Are you saying we're not going to have any police? You know, the public think that's totally crazy. So he says, why don't we reformulate it in ways that the public understands? Like, police have an inflated budget. Isn't it time we take away some of that money from the police and give it to social services? Or police have all these legal immunities which prevent them from being prosecuted and convicted. Something called the 48-hour rule, all sorts of special immunities that they get. So he says, I'm not going to sign on to defund the police because the public doesn't understand that. I want to discuss concretely what you're talking about, and then I'm on board for everything. I want to eliminate those legal immunities. I want to reduce the bloated British police budgets. I think that's all correct. Returning now to your question. For the broad public, what is Zionism? What is Zionism? Do they even care? You think, go to Liverpool in a bar. How many people are talking about Zionism? You know?
No.
Same thing with Semitism. They don't mean anything to anyone. Now listen, I wrote my doctoral dissertation on Zionism. So I have a stake in it. And given the fact that I was never able to get a job, that's all I have left is that stupid dissertation. And here am I telling you, forget it. Don't argue about those things. Semitism, Zionism, you know, that's what these Jewish crooks want you to do. They want you to spend hours talking about the Jewish people because there's nothing they like more than talking about the Jewish people. They love their navel. So you're ending up, instead of talking about the blockade on Gaza, instead of talking about the settlements, instead of talking about the annexation, you're going to sit down and talk with, what's his name? Oh, God, his name just slips my mind. The one who did that eternal program in the history of the Jews. Simon Schama. You're going to sit down with Simon Schama and start talking about Semitism and Zionism and thisism and thatism. That's not the issue. The issue is Israel's human rights violations, Israeli human rights crimes, Semitism, Zionism. It's just totally beside the point. And so I don't think we should get bogged down in those kinds of discussions. Noam Chomsky considers himself a Zionist. Benjamin Netanyahu considers himself a Zionist. Avigdor Lieberman considers himself a Zionist. What does Chomsky have in common with Avigdor Lieberman?
They're both Zionists.
It means the term is so broad and so abstract that it doesn't mean anything. Whereas if you talk about, does Israel have the right to create a state which legally discriminates against its non-Jewish population?
Mhm.
That's a simple, concrete question which most, even non-liberal Jews, would have struggle answering. Israel proclaims it's the nation state of the Jewish people. Okay, but what does that mean for those who are not Jewish in Israel? Is it right that a citizen of Israel should be a second-class citizen simply by virtue of the fact that he or she is not Jewish? Does that sound right to you? There, you begin to have a concrete political conversation. Whereas if you start talking about Zionism and Semitism, you end up in this never-ending disquisition about nothing.